Recording.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you everyone for coming today. I really appreciate you all coming. I just wanted to inform you that any information discussed in today's session will be kept confidential, okay? Any information discussed in this room will not leave this room. There are no judgments. I want you to be open and honest about your opinions, your feelings, and so forth, okay? First, I would like to start off with just a brief introduction, starting this way. Say your name and where you're from, okay?
My name is Loretta Eddings, and I'm from Fresno, California.
My name is Emmanuel Whitelow, and I'm from Fresno, California.
Cameron Hilaire, and I'm from Los Angeles, California.
Nicholas Whitelow, and I'm from Fresno, California.
Thank you very much for introducing yourselves. As you know, today's topic that we'll be talking about is African Americans experiencing racism in today's society. I will go forth with basically asking a few questions, and you will just go forth with answering those questions and saying how you feel about them, okay? First, I would like to start off with a brief story that I've encountered experiencing racism in today's society. So basically, as a young girl, I grew up in going to an all-white school, okay? Well, a majority of white people went to the school, okay? And me and a young white girl had encounter to where I tried to befriend her, and she ended up spitting on me and told me her father didn't allow her to be friends with black people, okay? Now, with that being said, the situation followed with me having to set up a meeting with my parents and her parents, discussing the encounter with the principal and the counselor at the school. And what ended up happening is we both ended up getting suspended. Now, how did that make me feel? I was very angry inside. I didn't feel worthy enough to be her friend as a black woman and a white woman, okay? Now, as I grew up, I realized that we will always experience some form of racism, no matter what race, no matter what gender, no matter what ethnicity. We will always experience some form of racism, and we will just have to learn to accept each other's flaws and move forward with our lives. However, not everybody thinks the way that I think, correct? So today I want everyone to kind of give me a little real life situation of how you all experienced racism and how it made you guys feel. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So my first question is, have you ever experienced racism? I just want each of you to say yes or no. And
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
okay, thank you for sharing that. Now, just one by one, I will allow you guys to briefly explain how did you experience that racism, and how did that make you feel? Starting with you, Loretta.
Okay. It was an altercation. I was at the grocery store with me and my husband, purchasing groceries for the family. And as we was in line purchasing the groceries, there was two gentlemen that came and tried to bogart their way in or crowd us and trying to rush to get out the store because they were just being rushful.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so one gentleman told the other gentleman, just go ahead and crowd them. Go ahead and crowd them. If you don't, I will. And I proceeded to explain to them, I'm like, no, that's being very rude, you're being very disrespected, or whatever like that. But they still encountered. They went, they still got in front. My husband was on the side, and he was like, no, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be doing this. As the time proceeded, it was an altercation, took out, the gentleman purchased their stuff, they proceeded to leave the store. As they proceeded to leave the store, my husband went behind them, presumably like, you totally disrespect my wife. I don't think that's right, just what you have just done. Then in that bad altercation went outside the store where the two gentlemen, one of the gentlemen had swung at my husband. And my husband, they had got into a real bad altercation with the end up proceeding at the time that they both got injured, got into a fight, and yeah, it was uncomfortable. I still proceeded to stay at the cash register. At that time, the store management and bosses proceeded to call the police with it. It ended up that the two gentlemen went to jail.
Wow, okay. I totally understand the situation. So basically, just to reiterate what she said quickly, she experienced racism in the grocery store with her husband. And now, were these other gentlemen, were these white people?
These Caucasians.
Okay, okay. Now, with that being said, so she's experienced racism, her and her husband, with Caucasian people. And how did that make you feel, Loretta?
That made me felt very uncomfortable, disrespected. You know, I was keeping my calm, you know, and I was trying to calm down my husband at the same time. I couldn't just let it go. Let's just let them go. Let them do their purchase, and then we can just do ours and just go. He was very upset, and then that's when he had to went outside to proceed in talking with them, and then it had got violent, you know.
Oh, okay, okay, I understand. And see, I reflect on this situation as you're telling me. Now, when racism leads to violence, then we're on a whole nother level, correct? We're on a level of to where the law has to get involved, and I'm sure that made everyone at that time feel uncomfortable with just the thought or the risk of someone going to jail over these racial gestures that could have been resolved more easier, correct? It could have been talked out or something, but the fact that it led to that level, it makes you feel like, wow, racism definitely does exist, and as an African American woman, I can relate, I can understand that how you feel uncomfortable in that situation. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Emmanuel, what would you like to share with us about your experience with racism?
Well, it happened about 2 years ago, 2015, when I was coming from a friend's house, driving pretty much back home in the middle of the day. I was going in the turning lane, you know, going freeway and stuff like that. Okay. When the light turned green, there's, you know, cop cars that was coming down. They seen me as they was going down. About a minute later, they turned around and ended up behind me. So when I turned, they followed me and they pulled me over. Now they both came up to the door and they asked me for a license and registration. I asked them why they pulled me over. They said my tail light was out. Now the interesting thing was, me and my dad had fixed the lights on that car a week earlier. Okay. So that car, it was good. So I gave them my license and my registration, things like that, and they were both, there was 2 Caucasian police officers on either side of the door. And I felt that, I mean, it was weird because, I mean, they just pulled me over. They were just going straight down the street, and they just automatically ended up behind me. So, yeah.
Wow. So just to quickly reiterate, he mentioned that he experienced racism of being an African American with his African American father, of course, driving in the turning lane, and ended up getting pulled over by 2, you mentioned 2 Caucasian police officers. And in that situation, how did that make you feel, Emmanuel?
That made me feel very uncomfortable because it was weird because we fixed the lights already way before then. And I just felt that they pulled me over because they seen that I was black.
Totally understand that. And I can definitely relate and understand about how you would feel uncomfortable in that situation, being an African American, just driving down the street like everyone else, correct? And being targeted for the color of your skin. That's basically how you felt. You were being targeted for the color of your skin versus the tail light, correct? Thank you very much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Now, Cameron, would you like to share your experience?
Yes, I would say, being from Los Angeles, there was times when growing up, I would see like how the police officers would treat me and my friends. It could be about 5 or 6 of us at least, sometimes even maybe 7 or 8. And usually when cops would see that many young black kids hanging out, they usually would tell us to break up in 2s, or they'll just keep an eye on us wherever we're going. And you can, for instance, we'll go to the mall and stuff, and they would say how they'll have mall security come up to me and my friends and say, there's a limit to how many people can be in a group. And we'll say only like 3 to 4 people. And you know, that was hard, and we already knew it was because we were black, and then there's times we would go into different stores, and you can feel the heat was on us, or the stares was there from the employees, just because of a certain amount of black men just walked in the store. So that's something I've always had to deal with. Even when I got to college, that's when I really experienced it more, just going to different parties and stuff, and seeing how the white fraternities would treat me and my fraternity and stuff, and you could see why, and you could tell that they didn't want us around the girls and stuff like that, just because they was like, no, black guys are not allowed at these parties. So it was something that, you know, me and my friends had to get used to, and it was hard. But we just realized too, though, that that's just something that's been there for so long, and now it's just there are more to put it right there in front of you, make it clear that, hey, we're racist and we don't want you here. So that's the struggle, I think, now in 2017, is that it's the racism is right there in front. It's no longer that they're hiding it. They're putting it out there for you to look at it and say, this is what we are. So Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. So to restate his situation, he's experienced racism pretty much throughout his upcoming in life. You know, throughout his upbringing, he experienced racism as a young African American man hanging out with his friends in the fraternity. You know, it's when you think about a fraternity, just for reference, you would think it's about brotherhood, about unity, right? You all would come together. But to experience it on a white and black level, it shows you how racism still exists and how it can impact a person on a daily basis. Correct? Thank you very much for sharing that, Cameron. Nicholas, would you like to share your experience, please?
Well, Monday, me and my friends were at school. One day, me and my friends were at school, and we were at lunch, and we got our lunch and everything, and then we went to go sit down, and like this group of Caucasian people, we sat next to them. They said we couldn't sit here because like we were like African American.
Okay. Now with that encounter, it almost makes you think of back then, like black people couldn't sit with white people, right? And it's almost like, how can that exist right now today in 2017? Now I'll tell you, as a professional school counselor in the school system, I actually witnessed some very similar racist encounters, similar to your story, with how a black person can't date a white person in today's school systems. And it's not that they emotionally can't be attached or can't connect to one another, right? It's because of their upbringing. It's because of what their family heritage has instilled in them, correct? And how it has made them feel, no, don't hang out with that white person, or don't hang out with that black person. And it's really unfortunate that it has came to this, but that's just how it is, correct? And with all that being said, to kind of round it up, I really appreciate you all sharing your experiences, and with the simple fact that we were able to connect and to relate to one another. We've all experienced racism in some kind of way. And just to follow up with all of you, if you had one main word to describe how you felt in that moment, so I can capture what you were feeling, can you just give me one word in that moment of you're experiencing racism? Can you just share one word with me about how you feel?
To me, I feel it was sadly the way the situation was done.
So you felt very sad. Emmanuel, with your with your experience with the cops pulling you over, you and your father, can you give me one word about how that made you feel?
Made me feel uncomfortable, even scared.
Scared. That's a deep word. Scared. Cameron?
I'll probably say disappointed.
Disappointed.
Just because it's gotten worse since I was a kid to now, and it's just a different type of way, but it's still there.
Disappointed. Nicholas, based on your experience, give me one word about how it made you feel.
Pretty unfair.
Unfair. Yes. And when you say unfair, do you mean you feel unequal? Right. Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, thank you all for coming. Thank you for sharing your experiences. During our next session, I look forward to talking to you about coming up with solutions that would be best for us to deal with racial situations that are still happening in our society today. So just to give a brief recap, during our next session, once we meet again, I would like for us to kind of reiterate what we talked about during this session, okay? And then going forth with coming up with solutions to help us cope with racism and make the world, in a way, a better place for us to deal with our own struggles with racism, okay? Okay. Thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to speaking with you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.